Penguin Audio presents Loyalty by Ingrid Thoft. Read by Rebecca Soler. Chapter 1. This was her punishment. She was sure of that. There was no other explanation for the hell she was in. Being tied up and blindfolded had been bad enough. Then, she'd heard the engines come to life and begun rocking against the walls of the small space. That could only mean one thing. They were going somewhere, probably out to sea. For days she had struggled to remain strong and optimistic, but now she gave in to her fear and sobbed uncontrollably. This was hard to do with tape over her mouth and a blindfold over her eyes, but every ounce of her energy was directed toward her outpouring of despair. Minutes passed. She didn't know if it was 6 or 60. The engine seemed to shift, and the boat slowed. A loud, grinding sound prompted her to tighten her aching back muscles. The noise stopped after a minute, and she heard footsteps overhead. When they pulled her out of the hole, she struggled to fight them, but it was useless. She was too weak, and they were too strong. Fresh air skipped across her skin, and she felt something like hope for a moment. But the hope died when the heavy, thick chain swung into her shins and around her calves. Hot urine trickled down her leg and raised goosebumps on her chilled skin. Her arms and legs were cinched together tighter, and she was picked up off her feet. Then, it was air. Then water. Then, nothing.
We can't find Melanie.
What do you mean you can't find her? Fina asked.
What I said, we can't find her.
Fina steered with her right hand and ate a hamburger with her left. She needed a third hand so she could flip the bird to the asshole who just cut her off on Sturrow Drive. What do you want me to do about it? She's probably buried under a stack of clothes at Nordstrom.
Just get over here,
her father grumbled. The elevator doors slid open to reveal the 48th floor of the Pru, and Fina pushed through the glass doors etched with the words Ludlow and Associates. There were 3 receptionists behind the enormous granite counter, all thin, young, and pretty. Fina ignored them and followed the hallway through a series of turns. At the end, she found a blonde woman she didn't recognize serving as the gatekeeper outside her father's door. Fina strode past her and walked into his office, where he was sitting behind his desk in a large swivel chair, his back to the view, a phone pressed to his ear. The blonde flapped into the room, and Carl shooed her away. He shot Fina an annoyed look and gestured to the phone. She shrugged and admired the view. Boston and Cambridge spread out before her, the Charles River a thick snake between the two. The grid of Back Bay looked orderly from this height, belying the disorderly Boston drivers darting through its narrow streets. It was the end of May, but they'd had a few days of heat that made the landscape appear fuzzy and blurred. Carl Ludlow, Fina's father, was the king of personal injury lawsuits. He'd built an empire on attorney referrals, connecting the injured and wronged to the people who could squeeze the balls of every insurance company, doctor, and business owner across the land. He once told Fina, with relish, that one of his television ads ran somewhere in the United States every 13 seconds. In the ads, he stared straight at the camera and proclaimed, "I'm Carl Ludlow, and I can make it better." Funny. That hadn't been Fina's experience growing up. After a couple of minutes, her father put down the phone, and she plopped down in a leather chair in the sitting area of his office.
Where are your manners, Fina?
I don't know. Ask my parents. Carl was dressed as if he had had a non-traditional award show on the docket. The Grammys, maybe? He was wearing a beautifully cut silk suit in dark blue, which he'd paired with a slightly lighter blue shirt. His tie...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?